Welcome to this week's episode of Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Grab a seat at the table as Masters rowing coaches Marlene Royal and Rebecca Caro share their biggest secrets on how to unleash your hidden potential and plot a new course for real results on the water and off. Now, on to the show.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Today we are talking about getting in and out of a single. I'm Rebecca Caro and I'm flying solo today because it's Marlene's birthday. If anyone was in any doubt, this is the place to go to see the things that she's doing. So let's talk about single sculls. They are the most wobbly boat. Many of us have learned to get on with them and to become their friends or indeed their fans. But for a lot of people, a single is a real challenge that maybe you're not quite sure that you want to take on. The first bit of taking on that challenge is how do you get into the boat without looking like a sack of potatoes that's just been humped over there? There are a lot of good resources on the internet about things that I consider to be really basic, but worthwhile to learn how to do properly. And what gave me the clue about this was we put a video into our Sculling Intensive Camp product, which is about how to turn your boat around. And when I shot the video, it was me in my single. I was having a bit of a funny time. It was a windy day and I was in a corner of the lake and I had my phone like strapped to my speed coach mount and it kept moving ever so slightly sideways, which was entertaining because I kept having to stop and straighten it out again. But what happened as a result was a very short video in which I demonstrate what to do with your blades when they are being used and not being used, alternating in the turning around movement. And the feedback I got was really robust. That was so helpful. No one's ever explained that to me before. And that's inspired me to think about, let's go back to some of the basics. And what are the things that might be preventing someone trying a single for the first time? And I started with getting in and out of the boat. Now, as luck would have it, there are some very good online resources. And the thing that I call the basic method is a great video that the Nathan Benderson Park team shared on Facebook. I'm going to show it to you now. I think it's so good because it's very clearly explained, but, and this is going to be your benefit for watching it with me kind of looking over your shoulder, I'm going to illustrate a few things that I think are particular to masters that the demonstrator may not be very conscious of. So let's take a little look and see what she has to show you.
Hi, I'm Megan Farrell, program manager here at Nathan Benderson Park. And this video is to show you guys, beginners, how to get in and out of the boat. We're going to go over a couple different ways. So, first way, you always want to make sure you have one hand on both of your handles. This is going to keep the boat stable. And generally across rowing, you learn how to do everything one-handed. So, I've got one hand holding both my handles together. Another important part of this, you don't want them to be down. You want to make sure both blades, one is touching the dock, one is touching the water, it's face up. You've got 2 points of stability there. So I'm going to switch hands here, move my seat behind me before I enter the boat, moving back to my right hand holding the handles. You can also kick it back with your foot. I'm going to step into the boat. There's a portion in the center here that's reinforced and it's stronger and it's meant to sustain the weight of people stepping in and out of the boat. So it's important to always step there. It usually looks like grip tape, like on a skateboard. It's a little bit rougher, so you don't slip on it with your foot either. So I've got one foot in the boat. I bring my other foot inside, and then I would squat down. It's a little windy today, so the wind is pushing my boat off the dock. So I have to keep one hand both legs up on that reinforced part of the single that we talked about. One hand on the dock, one hand on the oars. You're gonna step up, one foot out, and up down. Something that's not always easy to see when you're stepping out. I've got one foot on the boat and one foot on the dock. I'm actively keeping that boat close to the dock so it doesn't push away. The dock is stationary, the boat is mobile. To keep in mind, push off and then pushing the boat away from you when you're stepping up and out of the boat.
Just going to pause it there because I think that she makes a really useful point about the wind affecting your ability to get in and out of the water and get onto the boat. What she should have done was explain that you first assess the wind before you decide to get into the boat, because that then starts to train the habit of always looking out for water hazards before you get on the water for rowing. Secondly, I want you to look at her hands here. She's holding the oars quite nicely with one hand, but her first finger is between the two ends of the oar handle. And that risks getting pinched. And it isn't a way I would recommend teaching a beginner. I think she would have done better to push her handles away from her, closer to the rigger, so that the tips of the blades, I'm showing you just here with my mouse, are actually touching, they butt together. And then your hand, with one hand, you can overlap the ends of both oars. And it actually creates a third point of stability along with the end of the spoon of the blade on the water and the end of the spoon of the blade that's on the dock. And that actually makes an even stronger triangle of strength, because when you pull up on the handle and those two ends of your oars are touching, they act like the two oars are a single unit.
All right, so the second way to get into the single, if you have any hip or knee mobility issues, is to actually sit parallel with your boat and line your hips and your butt up with your seat, and you're just going to slide into the boat. So with this, I keep my left hand on both my handles, one hand behind the seat, and I'm just going to push with my leg up, with my body into the boat.
So I'm going to stop you there, because the thing that I think she fails to understand for masters is that really compressed knee position. She brings, in order to be able to elevate her body, she brings her left heel really close into to her bum before she slides herself sideways. And I think that's a position that someone who has knee issues and needs to sit down to get into a boat, I think they're extremely unlikely to be able to actually make that maneuver.
If you notice, my left foot right here is keeping my boat tight to the dock, but not bumping into the dock so it doesn't drift away again. You have to always keep in mind where your handles are and where the dock is. You know, if you want to stay close to shore, you can always pull yourself back in. So that's getting in, and then getting out. Same thing, you're going to bring your knees up. This one's a little bit simpler. I'm going to push off with my outside leg, dock, which is my right leg. Push off here, slide on the dock.
And again, did you notice as she was doing that, she actually pushes down with the handles quite significantly. So the outside oar comes off the water. So what she fails to mention in the instructions is you need to keep upward pressure on the handles. Let's just watch it again.
My leg, dock, which is my right leg. Push off here, slide on the dock. That is the second way to get in and out of the single.
So all in all, that's actually a really useful summary of what I would call the basic method of getting in and out of a boat. There are some things that I think when you're working with individuals, you will have to adapt, because rowing with adaptations is kind of our mantra in Masters Rowing. We can't all do exactly what we might have been able to do when we were younger. And so you have to have up your sleeve a couple of variations that will enable somebody who can't quite make the positions that the demonstrator was using there, so that they can actually do what you want them to be able to do and to feel safe doing it. The principal adaptation that's going to be useful is having someone else there to help you, someone holding the rigger for you. I always like to get the athlete to hold the blades, because as they get more confident, hopefully, if they can hold the blades and the boat and maneuver their body, they will then be able to get into a single on their own without assistance. But some people may never get to be able to do that. And so you have to build into your guidance an understanding that whether or not the boat's drifting away from the dock because of the wind, or because they need to have two hands to push themselves up to slide sideways onto the seat of the boat, those are things that you need to bear in mind. I will also say that in a conversation a while ago with Tara Morgan, who runs a Seattle-based masters coaching clinic, she says some of her older rowers find it very hard to get out by shunting sideways, as that video illustrated. And they prefer to go from sitting to putting both hands on the dock and then turning around so that they are kneeling, and then they use their knees to step across onto the dock, and that they feel they have more control over their body weight and their movements when they do that. Now, she also adds that getting out onto a dock often involves being close to some, let's call it swan poo, and that's not very pleasant. And so she recommends having cut down yoga mats, which you can put next to your boat on the dock that are clean, so that you've got a nice clean surface to sit on. Because although the dock she had there looked pristine, I'd hazard to guess that there's a little bit of sea animal, bird life that goes there from time to time, and nobody wants to put their hands on something like that. Now, if anything that we're saying now is of use to you, consider supporting our podcast by going to fastermastersrowing.com/podcast. Donations start at $1 a month. And if you feel we're doing good work advocating for Masters Rowing, raising awareness of these sorts of things that clubs and federations need to do in order to make Masters Rowing more acceptable, more inclusive, more universally practiced, then supporting us through our podcast is a great way for you to help us fund this really important work. Now, I want to go on to the last version of our How to Get Into the Boat. And this was a wonderful piece of film that was submitted online by a man called John Tracy. If you're not familiar with the Masters Rowing International Facebook group, it is a fantastic place to join other masters, have discussions, and look, listen, learn, share together. We all enjoy the group. And John kindly gave me permission to show you this, which is a standing push-off. So this is a rather more advanced way of getting into a single. I have to say it's extremely classy if you can do it. And his film shows him making a really, really nice entry into the boat. Take a look at this. Please try refreshing the page. Don't you love it when you prep everything and it's all ready to go and then it doesn't? Of course, the thumbs up is an absolutely essential part of getting yourself onto the boat. Let's watch it again, and I'll talk you through what he's actually doing as he does it. So the first thing he does here is he pushes out his waterside scull, positions the seat, and steps onto the seat, transferring his weight confidently. Then he is holding the rigger with his left hand, and that gives you an additional point of stability. So his right hand here is pulling upwards on the oar handles, and his left hand is holding either the oar or the oarlock, so that he's got balance as he transfers his weight from standing on the dock to standing mostly here in the middle of the boat. So let's do it in reverse. So as you can see here, he starts to push off. And as you're pushing off, you actually want quite a lot of weight on the foot that's on the dock, because you've got to be able to give it a good push. You'll only give it a really weedy push if you're standing mainly on this leg. So you can see his center of mass is still positioned here, kind of right over the edge of the dock at this point. As he pushes off here, he then pushes and then transfers his weight. Now he's standing with all his mass here on one foot, but the boat is balanced because of this arm that's holding on to the shaft of the blade, or possibly onto the rigger, you can't quite see, as he brings his foot across. And now he's standing with both feet on the deck of the boat, and he sits down. Now for this really good bit, the thumbs up. He hasn't succeeded in pushing enough away from the dock that both oars are on the water. So this left-hand oar is still on the surface of the dock. So let's have a look at what he does next. And the important thing here is what he's doing with his right hand. He is actually holding the entire boat level with this oar, which is resting on the surface of the water. Just watch that again. So he's holding it quite firmly there. And he draws the dockside oar in towards him until the tip of the oar is against the side of the dock. And although you can't see it, he will have made the oar vertical so that you get a vertical surface to push off against the side of the dock. And if you look closely, this dock is actually curved on the edge. If you had your oar horizontal, so in the feathered position, and you pushed and it didn't sort of bite or slipped, it would slip up and onto the dock or slip down and underneath the dock. And that doesn't give you a nice feeling of stability. So he squared the oar so that the tip of the oar is pushing against the dock. And here he is. He gives it a good shove, and all the while, his right hand here is keeping the entire boat level. He doesn't need to be controlling the height of the balance with his left hand at all. And now the oar is on the water, and he's able to fully pull away from the dock using the oars because they're both resting on the water. Now, I like to be able to do that. My ability to do it has got slightly less skillful as I've got older. I found I used to be able to push fully away from the dock in one movement, but now I'm just either not strong enough or not confident enough to do it. But it is a fun thing to practice, and I definitely encourage people to give it a go. Final considerations with getting in and out of a single scull. Once you progress to feeling you've got the basic hang of how to do it, have someone else there who's just there to catch your rigger if you get unbalanced. The other thing to remember is that your boat can tip quite considerably before there's even a remote chance that you will fall in. If you haven't never done a rigger dipping exercise, send me an email and I'll explain how it works. And you can work out for yourself what sort of angle you can tilt your boat to while still remaining safely in it. It's a bit like a London double-decker bus. They can actually tilt to 28 degrees before they actually fall over, if I wondered. There's a couple of nice photos of that on the internet. And being able to get in and out of your own boat safely is a great way of teaching you boat handling skills And boat handling skills are the sort of tricks that actually lead to you being much more safe and being able to handle different weather conditions. John Tracy's trick of holding the whole boat level with just one hand is a really, really useful one that I definitely encourage you to go and learn for yourself. And that is the end of the podcast.
If you're part of the Rowing Chat Podcast Network, please tell your rowing friends about the show. And if you've learned just one helpful thing from today's episode, please consider supporting the show for as little as $1 per month by visiting fastermastersrowing.com/podcast.